welcome to Monday Morning Detective, the podcast. This is episode number 24, and I am Gino Scala, your host. And today we're going to touch on additional updates from the Idaho murder scene in Moscow, Idaho. Still a very, very sad incident, and we're no further along in the investigation, so it seems, than we were when it happened. So let's go over the most recent headlines today. The father of Kaylee Goncalves claims that his daughter was the one that was apparently targeted, he believes, because her wounds were quite different than the others. He describes her wounds as being big open gouges. Now we'll talk about that in a little bit. A famous criminologist states that it's looking more and more like the killer is a random stranger, like as in the Gainesville Ripper. And this is something I said a month ago. Danny Rolling was the Gainesville Ripper, and it takes on a lot of similarities to that incident, that case. So they're starting to perhaps agree with my assessment, or coming to their assessment on their own. There's a report that the Idaho police are not releasing a lot of the information that they have. Well, that should be a given. The police do not investigate a crime for the purpose of informing the public. As long as they protect the public and provide the public with information in order to protect themselves, that's the end of their responsibility. The public does not have the right to know each and every detail, and there are certain details that are kept under the vest for obvious reasons. So that's just someone complaining about not getting all the information. They're also claiming that the case is not being solved in a fast enough time period. And I understand that complaint or the desire to get the information. We all want, nobody wants this crime solved more than the Moscow Police Department, or more than the citizens of Idaho, or law enforcement of Idaho. Okay? Just make that very clear. The problem is these cases are difficult to work. We don't have a smoking gun here. We don't have someone standing at the door confessing to killing these people. So in absence of these things, you're going to have to work with what you're left with. Now, we've had various reports about the crime being a messy and sloppy crime and blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't appear that a whole lot of DNA was left by the suspect. Now, if it was a sadistic killer, as in Danny Rolling, the stranger danger that I've been describing, that person would have come prepared with gloves, potentially a mask, and in the cold weather of Idaho, you could easily get away with these things at 3 a.m. Dark clothing, some generic boots with generic soles, or tennis shoes with generic soles that you can certainly throw out after one use. And The only real unique thing to this crime is potentially the weapon used, and that was taken away with the suspect. So these K-bar knives are quite, they're described as Rambo knives. They're quite popular, used in the O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, Ronald Goldman killings, and now in this one, and probably 100,000 murders in between. So it's not a necessarily unique killing weapon, but the fact that it's a unique type of knife, double-edged, killing knife, then in that way it's unique. But so generally, and I'm sure they have someone on the search for the knife in terms of local purchases. And when we say local, we're not talking about Moscow, Idaho. You start there, but it expands. And it's going to end up including the entire state. And if those numbers are low, then perhaps the tri-state area, wherever, the surrounding area. But it's a good bet the suspect, at the time of the killings, lived within a 3-hour time period of the location. Now, when I say lived, he could have been camping. I think this killer is somewhat mobile and transient. So I don't feel like he's got a home base, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't given it much thought, but that's the situation. So they're looking for purchases of this knife going back probably 5 years. And if it's if it's determined that the model of knife is older than that, then they're going to have to go back longer than that. I can tell you, as the private investigator who found the original shotgun purchase by the Menendez brothers at a Big Five in San Diego, that being able to find the original purchase and put that gun, in this case was a Mossberg shotgun, in the hands of the accused killer, well, you've gone a long way in solving a question for the jury. A long way. It's always great to put the weapon in their hands. Now, if you can find a purchase that matches to a guy, and you could put that guy at the scene, a purchase of the knife, then you've gone a long way to answering that question for the potential jury down the line. Another headline: Kaylee Goncalves' family may hire a private investigator to solve the murders. Well, look, I've said this in other podcasts. I don't know how I would react or act if my daughter were slaughtered, as in Kaylee Goncalves' situation and her father's case. But I hope it wouldn't be acting like he is. He is a headline grabber, and now he's calling the police cowards. You can't be doing that, and you shouldn't be doing that. But the FBI and the police are not going to tell him he can't talk to the press because that'll only enrage things more. So, those are the current headlines, and really nothing. Well, I was prepared to come on and say nothing new. However, as of this morning, they released a undercover plainclothes detective's body camera after he stopped a group of Idaho students the night of the murder. The murder had yet to be discovered. It was the stop was 2 or 3 houses away from the scene, and in what's considered fraternity row, sorority row. And these students were stopped for underage drinking or being inebriated while under the age, and that's because the drinking age there is 21, and they're at the frat house. 18, 19, 20-year-olds are drinking as well, which is common. I mean, that's not a big deal. My kids did it, and back when I was in a frat, Sigma Phi Epsilon, the age was 18. So, but I did drinking at 17. So, this is just a the way it is. So this detective is seen on camera, his body-worn camera, interviewing and taking information from these students. Now, I don't know the outcome of that. I doubt he cited them. I'm sure he gave them a warning. And because it was early, I think it's early in the semester at this point. And in the background, you can see a group. It looked like 4, could be as many as 6, group of what appear to be men or boys walking quickly in the background, about 20 yards behind where these kids were being interviewed. So, according to the press and according to the police, these were internet sleuths that discovered this, these quote-unquote suspects, these random people walking at a fast pace in the background. You can only see shadows. There were no features. And they were only illuminated by a street lamp overhead and the flashlight that the undercover detective had tucked under his arm as he's writing. This is how it's done. You stick the K light under your arm and you write on a 36 card, and that's how I did it. Now, I ask you, so anyway, people are suspecting that these people, they were coming from the direction of the home, although of the crime scene, although it was several houses up the block, 2 or 3, but again, it says an area surrounded by sorority and fraternity homes. And usually what takes place is the party is at the fraternity house. Those that live on campus come over and then leave because a lot of the frat members reside at the house. Now, we didn't have off-campus housing for fraternities or anything when we went. We just had a room that we would rent, and we'd use it, on a temporary basis. So it was nothing permanent in that regard. But my son resided, he was an officer with his fraternity on campus, and he resided in the frat house. And I think as many as 6 or 7 other guys did as well. And they pay rent and all that. but they're responsible for keeping it clean and they keeping things running. And he's very handy, so he did most of the work, and now he runs a construction company. So that's that's where his skills were. So here it is, 2:30. It was 2:30 in the morning when this detective was questioning these kids. They're leaving to go back on campus, and the group behind them is. To me, when you watch it several times, it kind of looks like a pre-dawn running group. You start off with the warm-up run of just a slight jog, and that's what it looked like to me. I don't believe that's what it was, but that's what it looked like. Now I don't believe they were suspects. I think they were other kids leaving the area, not wanting to get stopped by the detective, the undercover. Perhaps they've been warned before about underage drinking. Usually you get a strike, or maybe 2 strikes, and then the third one you're done, which means a citation or an arrest. And so these guys, while that cop was distracted and engaged in talking to this group of kids, this other group in the background were slithering away, so they wouldn't have any interaction with him. I think it's basically that simple. Now the question is whether or not Moscow PD ever saw this body cam footage, noted those kids, and have attempted to track them down. We don't know that yet. But right now, the headlines are saying that internet sleuths discovered this, and we don't know if the PD had already seen it, investigated it, it was a dead end, and so forth, which I believe that to be the case. I cannot believe that they would have this body cam footage in their possession and not see this. To me, it was obvious that this happened. You see a flash of something, so you rewind it and say, what was that? And then you see what it is. Now, if they did have this cam footage and watched it and did not see it, or hadn't even watched it yet, then we can fault Moscow PD. I choose to believe this is not the case. I choose to believe that they're doing the best that they can and, following up all potential leads, which means reviewing every second of video from every place that they've gathered video from. And outside of talking to every single student, I think there are 13,000. And the town itself, surrounding area, has about 13,000 residents. So in total, there's 26,000 people outside of talking to each and every one individually. I do believe that they are doing the best that they can. It may not be good enough, but it's the best that they can do. So with that, I'd like to wrap up episode 24 of Monday Morning Detective, the Idaho killing update, and not sure when we'll be back, but as soon as news breaks, we'll bring it to you. Okay? Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.